Welcome back, and thank you for joining me. Today's video is a walkthrough and recap on my fall 2025 semester in getting my Bachelors of Fine Arts in Illustration. I'm presently attending the University of Massachusetts in Dartmouth, and the illustration department is a part of their College of Visual and Performing Arts. As the semesters go on, I want to start off by saying that I'm a transfer student to this school, and I'm not only starting as a transfer junior within the school itself, but I'm also starting as a transfer junior within the illustration department. Now, if you're someone who's gotten their associate's degree from a fine arts program, and you transfer to another school, but you're going into a specific degree program like illustration or animation or graphic design, you're gonna have to complete that school's major specific curriculum in its entirety. So you're gonna be maybe a junior at the school, but you're gonna start off as a freshman within the program. That just means that you're gonna have to double or triple up on some illustration classes for the first year, so that way you can graduate at your desired date. But however, for me, I previously attended an illustration program at Lesley University, and I dropped out when I was a junior due to COVID and a bunch of other reasons. So I'm basically just picking back up where I left off, and I am retaking a few classes that I've already taken for two reasons. One, to get UMass Dartmouth's perspective on the class, and two, because I probably took that class about 6 years ago, so I would like to give it another go to see how I've grown and evolved, to have fresh eyes and to have a fresh experience with the curriculum that's being taught. So this semester I took 4 courses. I took an English course, a statistics course, and 2 illustration courses. Throughout this video, we're only really going to highlight and focus on the illustration courses and the curriculum, as I'm an art major. I will talk a little bit about the 2 other courses and what they were like, but not as in-depth as I'm going to explore illustration. So let's give a brief overview. My English course that I took was called Studies in Literature, The Hunger Games, which was basically an entire course dedicated to understanding dystopian literature and how it parallels our own world. And with the state of the world right now, specifically America, the parallels were very, very strong and very, very loud and very, very on brand for what we're dealing with, authoritarian fascist regimes and all. So let's give a brief overview. My English course that I took was called Studies in Literature, The Hunger Games, which was basically an entire course dedicated to understanding dystopian literature and how it parallels our own world. And with the state of the world right now, specifically America, the parallels were very, very strong and very, very loud and very, very on brand for what we're dealing with, authoritarian fascist regimes and all. Which you'll see in this video that I definitely used some of my illustration assignments as an outlet for how I feel about the current state of the world and the current state of what we so call a government. So, that's fun. Moving along though, I did take a statistics class, and holy shit, I am so happy to know that I will never have to take another math course in my life ever again. Statistics wasn't hard. I will explain it later on. I have some feelings about it. Anyway, in addition to statistics, I took the 2 illustration courses. The first one was called Posters, Comics, and the Marketplace, which is basically a class that explores a variety of different ways in which illustration is utilized in the world, different kinds of projects and paths that we can explore within our career. Does it explore everything? No, you can't explore everything in a 14-week semester, but we got a really good overview of different facets and ways illustration can be applied in the real world. And the other class was Character Design in the Environment, which I have already taken that class when I was in my previous program several years ago, but that was a class where I love character design and I would love to reapproach that, learn new things about it from another professor, and just give it another go with where I am now creatively and artistically. And this class, simply put, was just a deep dive into various aspects and facets of not just character design, but also how to let an environment aid to a story, if not tell an entire narrative itself. Before we hop right into these courses, I wanted to share that I'm also a work study student this semester and throughout the entire time that I'm going to be at this institution. So my work study is that I work in the campus's main art gallery as a gallery attendant. Let me walk you through what a usual opening shift is like, as this semester I was primarily a gallery opener. So several minutes before the gallery opens, I have to go get the gallery key. I make my way to where the gallery key is locked up. I get it from the people I need to. I make my way down to the gallery. I open the doors, and then I set myself up at the desk and get ready for whatever tasks are laid out before me that day by the gallery director. Truly working in the gallery means that I'm either doing absolutely nothing or absolutely everything. Some days we're prepping the gallery space for the next show install, which could mean that I'm spot speckling the walls, repainting the walls with white paint to reset from a past show. I could be repainting podiums and pedestals to give them a fresh coat of paint. I could be reorganizing our cart of supplies to make sure we have items in accessible spots. I could be returning equipment from a previous show and bringing in new equipment for the next show. I could be sweeping the floors. I could be washing the door windows. All of it's just making sure that the space is clean and reset and ready to go for the next show. When it comes to installing a show, what we do for install really depends on what kind of show is coming into the space. And we had 3 different kinds of shows this semester, and each show called for a different kind of install. So let me walk you through each show that we had. The first show was a foundations exhibition where all of the freshman fine art students displayed various work from their first year courses. That show, I didn't hang anything as I was literally brand spanking new, and it was hung up when I arrived. The second show was a visiting showcase from an organization called Dartmouth, and this show was a community-based activism project where various artists from the surrounding towns and cities would paint these recycled sails. And these pieces were not only displayed within the gallery, they were displayed within the building and on the exterior of the building. And this was a metaphor to show the importance of taking up space, and additionally, the importance of queerness taking up necessary and validated space, as the artwork on these sails were all centered around themes of LGBTQ+ pride. And the final showcase of the semester was a very hands-on experience, as the artist on display was artist Emma Kathleen Hepburn Ferrer, who is literally the granddaughter of the legend Audrey Hepburn. I didn't know this information when I met Emma, and when I found out this information after I met her, I was absolutely shell-shocked, gagged, and fucking gooped. I was like, oh my God, you're whoa. Which might have been good information that I didn't know that beforehand, because I would have been starstruck, I would have been shook, and I would have been fangirling. And having met Emma and been able to witness her work, Emma is truly such a sweet and kind human, and I have to say, I love her work because I'm also a fantasy and mythologically based artist, and Emma's entire show was all about the traditional mythology and iconography of the unicorn, and reinterpreting it through a lens of not only captivity, but inversely liberation. The show was really just so exciting and a pleasure to look at every time I was in the gallery. I should have her Instagram linked on screen if you want to check her out. Her work's incredible. And if we're not setting up a show, taking down a show, or resetting in between, I'm simply just gallery sitting and doing homework whilst various folks attend the show that's on display. So like I said, we're either doing absolutely everything or absolutely nothing. and there is no in between. And that's kind of okay. So now it's the moment you've been waiting for. Let's chat about the courses I took. Let's start off with the gen eds. So in the statistics course that I took, this was my issue I was talking about before. The subject matter itself is not super hard to understand and digest. Basically, all the course material builds upon each other as you go through the semester. And it's also building upon like basic algebra that I think we've all learned in high school, like the mean, median, and mode. Like that's where you start. And so the math is not super complex. But what irked me this whole semester is the language that was used. So because our school partners with a specific math curriculum, things have to be taught in accordance to that partner's liking and code. And this involved incredibly extravagant language that would overcomplexify everything we were doing. For example, let's say you wanted to make the color green. To explain that, you would just say, oh, just mix a basic yellow and blue and you'll get green. But with this fancy language filter being used, this is how they would explain making green. When you're seeking to conjure up the secondary prismatic hue of viridian, be wise and wary to procure a vibrant and phosphoric yellow and a saturated middle-grade cool-leaning blue, and allow these two prismatic hues to waltz together in a swirling motion until the forest canopy reveals itself to you. Huh? Bitch, it's green. Like what? And this is not my professor's fault, as she had to follow this curriculum within the partnership, but oh my god, I blame the partner, because bitch, it's green. What? And moving along, and I'm going to keep it brief so we can get to the art of it all. My English course I really did enjoy. Just to recap, we spent the semester reading the entire Hunger Games trilogy, and within the reading and exploration of this saga, we were learning about what makes something a piece of dystopian literature, and the importance of writing and reading literary works that parallel our own world. And holy crap, yeah, it does. It very much does parallel our own world, especially lately with, the rise of fascism and authoritarian regimes and everything, and the Cheeto-in-chief having an inflated ego. All of it, it's a very, very, very strong comparison, and we had a lot of really, really important and thoughtful discussions in this class, just comparing aspects of the book to our own world and to the things that are actively going on every single day. There was always something to talk about. Let's dive into one of the illustration classes I took, character design and the environment. Let's take a look at each assignment and I'll explain what the goals were for each one. Our first assignment was an interesting exploration into how a character, through their visual design, communicates specific characteristics. Each of us were given 3 different adjectives, and we had to make a character that successfully communicated those 3 descriptors. For me, mine were kind, dull, and goofy. And the purpose of these adjectives were to have 2 of them fit together pretty well. And the third was supposed to be a bit of a monkey wrench and propose some kind of a challenge to incorporate that specific adjective amongst the other 2. So kind and goofy worked together pretty well. Dull, on the other hand, was going to be the challenge. Now, once we solidified that character design, we had to make a counterpart that embodied the opposites of those 3 words. So instead of kind, this character was going to be cold. Instead of dull, this character was going to be extravagant. And instead of goofy, this character was going to be severe. Overall, I think this was a great way to dive into the world of character design a bit more than what the average artist is used to or average illustrator is used to before entering a higher academic environment, as we were adding some intention behind a character's appearance other than just simple aesthetics. the second assignment, this was titled Mythically Mundane, where you had to take 3 different mythological characters and/or beings from any global folklore, and you had to draw these beings doing an everyday activity. And we had to find atypical ways to convey this action and to think outside of the box. An example my professor gave us of something that was a little too on the nose was if you were to have a vampire drinking coffee, but the coffee's actually blood. So, or if you wanted to have a unicorn grocery shopping, you would have the unicorn having food stuck on its horn. And these examples, while they're not bad, are a little too common. So our professor was trying to really push the way that we were interpreting this assignment. Around the time that this assignment was given, a loved one of mine was facing a very serious health crisis and they were battling with cancer. And unfortunately, that battle they did not win. So I had to take some time away from school to be present with my family. My professors all understood this deeply, and in this class, my professor gave me until the end of the semester to complete or make up this assignment with no penalty, which is incredibly kind and generous of my professor to do. So, because of the heavy workload of the other assignments that you will see as we move forward, I was unfortunately not able to give this specific assignment as much time and energy as I would have liked to, but c'est la vie. It happens. For me, my 3 mythological beings, I chose a cyclops, a minotaur, and a unicorn. And they were all to be driving. Now, what they were driving was where the fun part came in. And additionally, how to characterize each character was also where the fun part came in. As for my unicorn, I wanted to showcase a mix of the common depictions of a unicorn mixed with the traditional folkloric depiction. So we're combining the typical mainstream horse-like depiction with the traditional goat-like depiction. And this unicorn is trying to rollerblade. Emphasis on trying. Horses are pretty clumsy creatures. I would assume that goats are as well. And thus a unicorn would be, and then you put a clumsy creature on wheels. Yeah, that's not going well. For my Cyclops, I made him present like he frequents various raves and would ride a Segway. Except he's a little too tall for the Segway, but that doesn't stop him. He's still here to serve and do what he's got to do. I coined him Twinkclops, which I think is kind of fun. For my Minotaur, I had him present a little more punky and grunge and gritty, and he's trying to ride a skateboard, but because he's a Minotaur, it kind of breaks midair because it can't hold him up because he's a Minotaur, so, you know, there's that. Remember how I mentioned before that some of my assignments this semester I used as an outlet for how I feel about this current administration? And I use that word loosely and lightly, just like how the current administration accesses their brains lightly. Yeah, this was one of those times. This assignment, we had to illustrate a scene with no figures in the scene, as the environment was to tell the viewer through visual communication what was happening in that scene. It was supposed to tell a story when you looked at it. And throughout our thumbnailing and completion of the final image, a mental note we had throughout the assignment was that our subject matter should not be niche. We can't do like a random indie game or a random niche story. This image and this story we're telling should be understandable and accessible to a general audience. For my assignment, I chose the French Revolution. Picking up vibes of how I feel? You know, sometimes if you're in a position of power and you have authority and governing decisions, if you're not going to use your head, sometimes you should lose it. That's just me. It's just how I feel. Okay. So, is this image historically accurate to the French Revolution? No. And that's fine. My goal was to combine the feelings that come with the general public revolting against their authoritarian government, mixed with the beheading of Marie Antoinette to get the vibes across. So it was a mix of both the feelings of the event mixed with some historical elements. And mostly everybody was able to understand that this was the French Revolution. So I view this as a success in my book. And mainly as a figurative artist, exploring an environment like this was truly so exciting and expansive, and it did take quite a few hours of time to nail down the vibe I was looking for, especially the colors, as I wanted the colors to be a good mix of true to life and emotionally charged. Speaking of hours, I did cut out a good chunk of time of the time lapse, as I colored this piece about 4 times from start to finish. 4 times. Beginning to end. So the 4th pass was the one that stuck. Are there still things I would change? Of course. There's some things I would edit, but I am happy with where it sits, and I'm happy with the growth that I gained during this. It was really fun to do, and I'm trying to work more as an illustrator with environments. I have to. It's very time consuming. That's the only thing. It's like riding a bike all over again. And I'm trying to take the training wheels off, but I like my training wheels. So, trying to grow and get uncomfortable and grow more as an artist, and this was an opportunity to do that. Moving along to the final assignment of this class, and oh boy, was this one an absolutely heavy lift. We had to conceptualize a reboot of a cartoon from the 60s, 70s, or 80s, and the cartoons we had to choose from were from a list of shows that our professors provided. We had about 6 we could choose from. I think they were Gargoyles, Speed Racer, Gem and the Holograms, Chippendale something, Inspector Gadget, and Scooby-Doo. Our tasks were as followed. 1, we had to conceptualize what this reboot would be, and the reboot had to reinvent the show in a fun and innovative way whilst remaining true to the show's overall vibe and thematics. 2, we had to redesign 5 to 6 characters of the main cast, ultimately resulting in a character lineup. 3. We then had to make 2 different character turnarounds from 5 different angles. Front-facing, 3/4 to the right, side-facing, 3/4 to the back, and back-facing. And finally, we had to design a show poster for the reboot. And we had about a month to do all of this, which you're probably saying to yourself, oh, that's a decent amount of time. And if this was the only assignment I had on my plate, you'd be correct. But trying to complete this and give it the time and energy it deserved, along with completing the other finals I had, oh my god, this was a heavy lift. I really wanted to do my best on this and give it as much time and energy as I could, which is why it made it a heavy lift. But trying to do this amongst a statistics exam, and like a full-blown 5-page English essay, and another drawing assignment, oh my god, it was a lot, but it was good. It was just a lot. All about time management, you know? If you couldn't tell by now, the show I chose to reboot was Gem and the Holograms from the 80s. I really didn't know much about Gem before this assignment, but after doing some research, I knew the concept for the reboot almost immediately. I chose to reboot Gem and the Holograms as if they were a traveling/touring group of drag performers, where instead of being in a glam rock band, they would perform individual numbers and then have a group performance as the finale of their show, a la like Lady Marmalade or like Cell Block Tango. This would allow each character to have a unique voice and aesthetic that would give way to the self-expression of each character and stray away from the uniformity of their designs like in the original. Each design was directly inspired by a current drag performer, and if you're into drag like I am, you may be able to pick up on who I use as a muse for each one. The vibe I was thinking for the show was if this was a true-to-life PG-13 cartoon, showing what life was really like for queer and drag performers, showcasing all the ups and all the downs. Like, you would see the drag queens traveling from city to city, the importance of tipping your local drag queens and your local drag performers, any kind of discrimination they face, difficulties in organizing their events, any issues that may arise during a number, anything of the sort when it comes to showcasing queer life, and especially queer life as a queer entertainer, would be involved in the show. For the promotional poster, I chose to showcase Gem getting ready backstage as if this was to be an Instagram post made by the show and the network. I just chose Netflix as a give me. This could appear on other networks as well, but Netflix was the first thing that came to my mind, and I was doing this specific image like 2 nights before it was due, so it could possibly be somewhere else, but Netflix was the first thing that popped into my noggin. And for the turnarounds, they are less detailed and more information-based. They don't need to be standalone artworks. They just have to depict the proper dimensions and proportions of the character for future artists to keep visual cohesion if they were to be animated or redrawn multiple times. They don't have to be like museum quality. They just have to be readable, legible, and mathematically accurate. Minor readable, minor legible. Are they mathematically accurate? I'd say within like an 80% margin. They're not all the way there, but they're there. Overall, I absolutely loved this assignment. This was, I think, my favorite assignment I did all semester. It was so well-rounded, it was so immersive, and it gave such a big behind-the-curtain peek into what post-production for an animated cartoon or an animated show or any larger project really looks like. And it was cool to not only play artist, but also play art director in this process. For me, it was just really fun and really immersive. Moving along, let's recap my other illustration class, Posters, Comics, and the Marketplace. This class was an overall deep dive and exploration of the various facets and features of the illustration world, showcasing different assignments that would allow us to dip our toes into different places and spaces where illustration can be found. The first assignment we were given was to do a children's book spread in solely black and white. No grayscale, no color. However, we could shade with black. In my image, I used halftones, and it may not look like halftones, but I set the halftone filter to 1%, so they are there, just very, very, very small. It's not cheating, it's just being clever, and I was caught for being clever, but you know what? It still works and it fit the brief, so yay. So our professor gave each of us a letter of the alphabet, and from there, we had to come up with a clever phrase that would allow for a double meaning. I had the letter H, and I came up with the phrase, H is for Harmony who can't spell. As I wanted my spread to be witchy in theme, the spell part came into play as the character wouldn't be able to cast a spell properly as a witch. Which played off of her name being Harmony, yet all she's doing in the scene is causing chaos. This was definitely a really fun assignment to explore and a great way to get started in this course. As I am a published children's book illustrator, this specific assignment has me wanting to grow and evolve the ways I illustrate any future projects and collaborations I have, as I would like to involve more clever compositions and also hand lettering. I have been falling in love more and more every single day with hand lettering as an art form. If you've been watching my recaps since the beginning, I've had hand lettering everywhere, and as the years go on, I just really enjoy it more and more and more. For the second assignment, we were exploring and learning about the world of editorial illustration, where in our case, we had to create an illustration that would accompany a published opinion article. Our artwork had to embody and cleverly visually summarize what the article was all about, but in a creative and innovative way, sort of like a visual metaphor. The article I chose spoke on how the recent rise of paganism is giving way to the possibility that it may be the next widespread spiritual movement, rivaling the spread and reach of Christianity. Which, as a practicing spiritualist, this made my heart very, very happy, as a majority of Catholic and Christian roots are in paganism, like Celtic paganism. For example, a majority of Catholic and Christian holidays, which are some of the mainstream holidays like Christmas and Easter, are appropriated and reinterpreted from holidays like Yule and Ostara. So for the artwork, I decided to have a statue of an angel being reclaimed by the land and protested on with various pagan symbols and icons to show the return of what once was. For the next assignment, we were given the opportunity to create a comic strip. This comic strip was limited to only 4 panels, so we as the artists had to not only create the strip itself, but hone in and focus on the legibility of the storyline. Each panel had to be intentional as we only had limited space and time to get to the punchline. Remember how that French Revolution piece I did earlier was a time where I vented my frustrations and scorn with the current political climate and downright fascist dictatorship that America is currently in? Yeah, this is another one of those times. So I decided to create a comic strip of the Cheeto-in-Chief's little bitch named J.D. Vance. You know, the guy with the forehead the size of Texas. So I have that man-child giving himself a tarot reading, and the card he pulls ends up being a card called the Man-Child, which obviously is a card that does not exist in a tarot deck, but I felt like that made it funnier, and, you know, it's just fitting for a little bitch boy like J.D. Vance. If you take a look at both the design of the card and the backs of the tarot cards on the desk, you'll see various visual iconography and design choices that point towards the narrative of the comic, giving indications that this is J.D. Vance without outright saying that it is. Like, for example, the back of the tarot cards have a star on them with golf clubs crossing them and a baseball hat sitting atop one of those clubs. In the main card design, the Man-Child is the card number 47, you know, because he's a part of the 47th administration, if you can even call it an administration, because I feel like you have to be dignified and worthy to be called that, and they're nothing of the sort. In this card, you see a figure dressed up as a clown with a juice box in one hand, because he's a little baby. He needs a juice box. Where? He's blindfolded, as like most man-children, they don't often perceive things properly, ergo being blind. He wears a pointed hat like a dunce cap, but it reads fascist instead. Tied to his ankle is a big spherical weight that reads fragile ego, as that is what holds him back in life. And the background showcases the nearby environment being on fire, which points towards the lack of attention the global climate crisis is receiving from our current dimwits that sit on Capitol Hill. As you may be able to tell, I got a lot of my feelings out in this assignment, and it was quite cathartic for me. For the 4th assignment, our class was given 2 different options, both having to do with the world of literature. Now, the option that I did not choose was to create a graphic novel page, which takes a passage from a published book and reinterprets that passage visually. The option that I did choose was to take a current publication and redesign the cover of the book to be something new and fresh, while keeping in mind that the methodology behind successful and iconic books, like that of Twilight or The Hunger Games. Successful book covers often don't depict a scene from the story itself. Rather, it highlights some signature iconography from the book that would often make sense once the book has been fully read. In addition to the cover, we also had to design the spine of the book and patterned end pages that would go on the interior of the book. I didn't realize this until later, but I also designed the back of the book as well, which we were not assigned to do, but it made the project feel more fully finalized, so I didn't mind taking that unnecessary extra step on my end. Additionally as well, both myself and my professor didn't notice this until critique, but notice how I said patterned end pages? and the pattern had to include like 3 or more symbols. Mine weren't patterns. You'll see later, but mine are basically just a spiral design of like thorns or briars, and I didn't notice that it wasn't a pattern, and my professor also didn't notice that it wasn't a pattern. We both just really jived with the design, but it was pointed out in group crit that like it was a good design, but it's not a pattern. Luckily I didn't get any points taken off, but I think the reason that it happened was just because the design worked with the thematics of the book. Anyway, I'm over explaining. Anywho, aside from that, for my book, which I did this a little backwards, as most of the time, books get turned into feature films. However, for the book I chose, the movie came first, then the book. This made my situation a little more nuanced, as I had to be weary of not just referencing movie visuals and come up with original imagery instead. I chose the book Snow White and the Huntsman. I tried something new with this book cover and made the artwork all lineless, focusing solely on shape language in the piece, and I have to say, I'm very, very proud of how this piece came out, as it was something totally outside of my comfort zone, and folks seemed to really drive with it, including my professor, who told me that this needs to be a piece in my portfolio, which it is. Moving along to the 5th assignment, our professor wanted to give us the opportunity to work with a client, to show us as students a sample of what it's like to engage with clients in the field as a working artist. In addition to the work we did, we were shown proper email etiquette. We had conversations about expectations when it comes to working with clients, how to engage with clients, and what is our job as the artist when it comes to different commission and client-based work. We worked with a business called People Incorporated, where they have an incredibly inclusive, progressive, and lovely preschool as a part of their business. A part of this was we were asked to create various pieces of wall art that could be picked to be on display throughout their school. The caveat we had to work with was that they were seeking for our work to be printed on vinyl, so the install would be done by an independent contractor. Other options that we could do were to create framed pieces of art that could go on the walls, or a hand-painted mural with the understanding that the mural would be temporary, as it could be painted over at some point in the future. The vast majority of my class chose to do the vinyl artwork, as it was something new and expansive to learn about. Whilst creating the artwork, we had to not only keep in mind the various ethics and morals of the client, but additionally the audience, which for us was preschoolers and toddlers who would be seeing this work every single day. So we had to make sure that the artwork we were creating was appropriate for them and something that they would enjoy to see. I chose to design a few different character mascots in various fantasy outfits. The color choices were directly sampled from the color palette of the building, so that way the designs blended cohesively with the environment and felt like they fit in. I do believe at this present time that I'm making this recap, the decisions are still being made as to which artwork made it into the building, which was chosen, because I believe they were actually having the preschoolers and toddlers choose which artwork went up. All I know is that mine was a candidate. So maybe in the next recap, if I have news, I will update you then. Overall, I had a blast working on this. This was similar to the previous assignment. It was something outside of my comfort zone a little bit, kind of going more simplified and more cartoony, but I absolutely had a blast with these designs. And now, we approach the final assignment in this class. For our final, we were presented with 3 different options that we could choose from. The first option was for folks who didn't get to before to do the book cover assignment from earlier. The second option, which most people chose, was to create an album cover for a musical artist of their choosing, along with making sure the album art fit on a record and CD case. The third and final option, which I personally chose, was to create a concert and/or tour poster for a musical artist of our liking. At the time of this assignment being given, I was absolutely obsessed, and I'm still obsessed, with an album that was released by an up-and-coming artist named Chrissy Schlepecka. This album is titled Christine and has all the pop vibes of the late 2000s. I think of her as like the queer Lady Gaga, as there's definitely some Lady Gaga essence in this album. And a majority of the aesthetics and song titles in the album really connect with me personally. And there's just some like personal experiences I have that are connected to some of the iconography in her album, so I'm all about it. Additionally, a majority of the narratives in her music are based on her experiences as a lesbian woman, which I think is so special, as we need more folks to be unapologetically authentic and just expressing themselves in their own truth, honestly, artistically, and purely. And so all of those things combined made me go, yeah, I'm making a concert poster for you. I knew immediately that I wanted to do the tour poster, which is funny because at the time I made this, she hadn't gone on a tour yet. But a week or so after I put this poster out, she announced her tour, which I think is just some incredibly cool divine timing there. It's just interesting how that synced up. Chrissy actually saw my artwork on Instagram and commented on it, and it absolutely made my day. That should be on screen right now. I was gobsmacked. I was like, oh my God, you saw this. That's crazy. And just overall, I really loved this assignment, as it was just a really relaxing and fulfilling way to close out this class. And overall, I have to say that this class was truly such a great introduction and showcase of the different ways that illustration can be utilized in the working and real world, kind of showcasing a selected yet vast buffet of different ways illustration is utilized in the working world. It's definitely not every single place that illustration occupies, but it definitely highlights a bunch of significant areas. And I definitely found myself thinking differently in this class, approaching assignments differently, and wanting to try new and different things, while also getting to have personal connections with each piece of artwork that I did. Something that I thought was funny was some of my classmates and my professors noticed that, not professors, but professor in this class, noticed from my first assignment all the way through that I have some signature elements that I included in various illustrations, where if I'm drawing like smoke or mist, there's this kind of like signature cloud style I have, and additionally I put candles in a lot of my pieces, so it became a running theme with some of my classmates and my professor, where it's like, where's the candles, Jonathan? Where's the smoke, Jonathan? Those are your things. Where are your things? Which I thought was funny. If you have made it this far into the video, I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining me as I recapped the fall 2025 semester in my journey to getting my Bachelors of Fine Arts in illustration. And implore me for a second. If you did make it this far, feel free to comment down below, "Hey Diva," just so I can see who made it. It's been quite nice to take a look back on what happened this semester, what it was like, and all the different things that occurred. A little sneak peek into the future is that in the next recap, you'll see that I've added on a drawing minor to my degree. So I will be having even more artwork to share when I recap the spring semester. But before I get too ahead of myself, you will see all of what's to come very, very soon. Thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.
Views and painted skies, stars that you can pick right out of the scene. An answer and a prayer at the same time. The unicorn is good. No, he is goodness itself. An answer and a prayer at the same time. And he is purity. The unicorn is good, and he is known, he is goodness itself. It's true. The unicorn is pure. But truth does not exist outside the walls of a flawed perception. But truth does not exist outside the walls of a flawed perception. Behind bars peeking out.